Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
Commanders took down the Lions. What happened?
Yeah, so this is our Commanders-Lions divisional playoff review.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. You went 3 for 3 on your bets. You had Barbin took, if you didn't hear our previous episode, he took the under in the Kansas City Houston game, which was the lowest total of the day, and hit that. And then this was 55.5 points, the biggest total of the weekend. He took the over in that and hit it almost at halftime. So that's what happened, Barbin. It went exactly how you thought. That's what
happened was if you're following along, you're making money. That's what's going on around here. It's all we do here is make money.
Yeah.
All right.
So what a game. So it was, and again, so just big picture thing, it didn't really feel like bad defense. Like it didn't feel like it was really, it was just really well executed offense. That's what it felt like to me. Did it feel like that to you?
I kind of felt like the Lions defensive just injuries eventually caught up with them here. Now, five turnovers didn't help, or four, whatever it was. I guess the last one was sort of at the end of the game, but you can't just keep giving the ball back and expect your defense to continue holding, and especially given that the Lions, I mean, they were still losing players throughout this game.
Yes,
like they just couldn't. Yeah. I don't know how many it is, but this has to be like a record-setting amount of injuries, but on one side of the ball.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, the offense was more or less intact. Montgomery was back.
Yeah.
But the defense
they had one guy come on, like, I think it was number 40, and they're like, yep, he hasn't played at all this year. Like,
yeah, it was his first snap, first snap. And I thought, how is this? How can this be the case on one team? Yeah. So now with that, I mean, the offense actually moved the ball. They actually outgained the Commanders. Now, you could say that it didn't matter because the Commanders are getting better field position kind of on a routine basis with all of the turnovers.
Yeah.
But Jesus,
the 5 turnovers and including a pick 6. I mean, that to me was really what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it is one of the first half had like one of the biggest combined yards on offense like ever in the history of the NFL. So I guess, on some of that has to be on the defense, but it really felt like it was just executing well on offense, and the turnovers killed them. And it just put the Washington in a better position, either on the field or even just with the momentum. It really felt like
this is such a strange drive chart for the Lions.
Oh my goodness.
They only punted once.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had 11 possessions. 5 of them ended in a turnover.
Yeah.
1 punt, and all the others were either a touchdown or a field goal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, without just literally throwing the game away, they could move the ball when they didn't just give it away.
And we talked about this at the Houston-Kansas City game. There was that when Houston failed to score the extra point, and then that really felt like it killed the momentum, and then Kansas City had a big drive after that. I felt, for me, at the end of the second quarter, when Detroit was coming back and they're like at least going to get a field goal and make it sort of within 7 points, and through the end zone interception was just a killer. And that to me was really the momentum change that was really that Detroit was going to have a hard time coming back from.
I mean, it's just too bad that this kind of comes down to Goff blowing it.
I know.
I mean, 4 interceptions. Yeah, the other team has to be somewhere to catch them. But that's Goff just having a terrible game.
Yeah, it was some of it. I don't know if it felt like he had to force it because Washington was, being very efficient on offense and scoring a lot. But it's
I have a thesis here, but go on.
Okay, so the one that bothered me the most was the deep post where the DB just undercut it. And I remember Brady had a good point about, when you throw that ball, it's got to be out in front of the guy, like, because every defensive back is going to try and undercut that, and so it has to be out in front where only like he gets it or no one can catch it, and that one was rough.
All right, so this is my thesis here. I've been talking a lot about the new era now is running quarterbacks.
Yes,
and the era
of tight ends.
Yeah, but specifically mobile quarterbacks. That's the new NFL. Yeah. And Goff being the statue in the pocket, this could be an example of that doesn't work anymore. And now obviously they got a lot of yards, but he constantly threw the ball away. And one interpretation of this is when you had gotta have it downs, Jayden Daniels can pick it up with his legs, whereas Goff, that's not an option.
Yeah.
And he may be forcing passes that really aren't there, or the timing's not there, or he can't set his footwork, or if he could have just escaped for a few of those downs, maybe he wouldn't have been putting the ball in harm's way constantly, whereas Jayden Daniels never put the ball in harm's way, could easily pick up critical yards when he needed to, or has the confidence to know he's got a pretty good shot at picking up yards with his legs.
Yeah.
Whereas Goff probably doesn't even consider it an option. And instead he's forcing the ball where it doesn't belong. And if that's true, we're just seeing the end. This to me is the end of you just can't do a traditional drop back guy anymore. Mahomes isn't. I'll put it this way. All the guys left in the playoffs besides Stafford aren't that. And Goff and Stafford might be the vestigial of the old pocket quarterback that is gone now. And unfortunately for the Lions, this might be an indication you can't win the Super Bowl with Goff.
Oh man, that's
because
really
when
double downing on that one, aren't you?
Well, again, this has nothing to do with the Lions defense being undermanned. This was Goff throwing the ball away.
Yeah. No, he had, so to your point, he ran once for a first down. It looked like he was quite lumbering, and Washington was not ready for it because he never does it. But you're right. I think that's and they made a good point on this on the broadcast too. Like Washington had a few sets where it's a triple option. He could give it to the running back, he could keep it, or he could throw it. And that puts so much pressure on the defense to be in the right position, because you can't be in the right position to stop all three. And so, and you just need, and it's not like you want to run it with the quarterback that many times, but having that threat there forces you to stay in a position, and it'll leave the pass or the running back part open, right? So, I think I think you're right. I think the NFL is getting to the point where the defenses are so good that if you don't have a running quarterback, it's one less thing they have to worry about, which just makes them more effective.
Yeah.
So.
And now to me, there was two plays that stuck out as the contrast to support my thesis. Now, if you think I'm biased, that's fine, because I'm obviously pick and choosing plays that,
he's
but to
not
me,
biased, everybody. Like he's just
I'm not
a straight
biased.
shooter. Yeah.
I'm not biased about the Commanders right now. Hey, listen, you guys know, if you watch the channel, we wear the jerseys of the teams we're talking about, especially when it comes down to like playoffs.
And Barbin is wearing the teams. He wore the Kansas City one, the Washington one, because he's gone 3-0 for his bets. 3-0,
and you know this. If you followed us, you're in the cash money following our bets this week. Anyway,
so finish your thesis.
So here's my thesis. Hear me out, both Commander and Lions fans. Try to take this as unbiasedly as possible. In my thesis, let's go with this. Hang on.
Keep going.
Daniels runs, I'd say 9/10 as good as Jackson. He's got that elusiveness, the vision, the smoothness, and he's faster than he actually looks.
Yeah.
Just somehow Mahomes is kind of like that, like faster than he actually looks. Anyways, on that 4th and 2, where Daniels kept it around the corner and Arnold inexplicably, instead of having contain, was looking in the middle. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. I listened to Shannon Sharp on Nightcap go off about this. He's like, your job is contain. It doesn't matter what's going on in the rest of the field. You have one job. Like when I played in high school, I was on kick coverage. I was contained. I had it drilled into my head, nothing outside of you. And I was like, okay, so it doesn't matter if the guy doesn't come there. You always have to turn it back in, because that's where your other 11
force it back in.
That's where the other 10 defenders are. If you give up the sideline, everyone
has to come off on an angle, and you have to force.
Well, then it's up to you, and if he's got that kind of speed, you're toast. Like then you're in chase mode. It's like everyone knows this. This guy's job is as that play was unfolding, I thought, what are you doing? He took one step in, it was over. Daniels had the corner. Goff can't make that play.
No.
Now, hang on. Here's the other half.
And just to finish that point, just about the angle thing, I felt the same way about the McLaurin pass, where it was the 3 receivers out wide.
Yeah.
Detroit only had 2 defenders, and as soon as he made one miss, then
safety
there was
had no chance.
No one else out there, and it's just what you don't want to get in the position of is the fast guy on the outside just running straight up the sideline, right?
Yeah.
So,
and whoever's left, even if that's a nickel corner, whoever it was never going to catch him.
Yeah.
And then to contrast the Daniels 4th and 2 play was the strip sack on Goff, fumble.
Yeah.
And again, that's him just being utterly immobile, just a statue in the quarterback, carrying the ball with no ball security. And there's one thing to be sacked. There's another thing to be sacked and holding the ball strong. And that just looked so weak. Like, and even the announcer said, you got to be stronger. You got to hold the ball stronger than that. You just can't be so loose with it. And you could make the argument he's still trying to make a play, but your best quarterback sense when it's coming. and they know that, like, okay, this play's over, cover, get both hands on the ball. Now you're a runner, or just protect the ball. Number one, protect the ball. And instead, I think people can tell it's inevitable with players like him and like Matt Ryan towards the end of his career. It's like, oh, when he gets sacked, the ball comes out. Kirk Cousins, these guys are not mobile. They're weak with the ball. Like they don't hold it strong anymore. And it's just, it's going to come out when they get sacked. It's like, it's coming out. And it was, when it happened, I'm like, yeah, that's Goff. That's Goff. When he's not going to protect the ball in the pocket. He doesn't have the physical capability anymore. If he ever did, not anymore, to really protect the ball. And it was just pathetic how easily it came out in that moment. Yeah. And so that, to me, that's the new age running quarterback versus the statue in the pocket, who, if the play's not there, what is he, just throws it away, strip sack, fumble, throws a pick, like all of that shit was happening today. So anyways, it just seems like you the few plays Daniels can make with his legs that Goff can't is just always weights the game in favor of the quarterback who can move.
Yeah. And I think, just to finish off that point, if you can't scramble to get the first down, or if you're really trained like not to do that, then you're either going to take a sack or you'll force a throw that maybe you shouldn't, when you know, in that case. And so, Goff was sacked twice and had 3 interceptions, and Daniels wasn't sacked at all and had no interceptions. Right. And part of that is
4 interceptions, but the fourth was sort of,
it was from the wide receiver, but it was the,
right.
Sorry. So, but it was the, so like, it's not, there's more to it than that, but because Daniels, is a really good quarterback, so is Goff, but it was really apparent in this game that was the Daniels legs really made a difference there. Yeah. So that was a terrible play by the wide receiver. I don't know. It was a completely forced throw, and there's a brutal interception. I don't know why he threw it. And then he seemed like he got upset on the sideline. So I don't know what was coming with that, but that was, he should never have thrown it.
On that. Yeah, but you can't, I don't know. If you're going to call one of those, I don't think you can blame him for not having the wherewithal to understand your guy's not fully open, and you don't have the touch to throw that. Like, I would expect, if it was reversed and somehow you did the throw back to the quarterback, and then the quarterback was deciding, you expect him to sense, that guy's not open right, or I can't place it in the bucket.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're asking the receiver to do it,
right,
I don't expect him to be able to sense, that guy's not open, I don't quite have what it takes. Like, he just ran the play as drawn up, and I don't know. I don't really put it on him to know, like, I can't throw that. Like, because he threw actually a decent spiral.
It was a decent ball. I just feel like that's you're right. I
putting too much on him.
I hear what you're saying. I feel like that if the offensive coordinator would have been like, you're going to get the ball, you come around the end around, this is where you want to throw it. It's a one read thing. It's like, it's either he's here and the defender's in this place, which case you throw it. If it's anything else, don't throw it, or you throw it out of bounds or run with it. That's it. Like, it's a one read thing. But anyway, it just seemed like it had no shot. But
once you let it go, and as it was flying, I go, this isn't going to work at all.
It was terrible. So, but now I want to say also, back up a little bit, I really enjoyed this game. Like, I loved watching it.
As compared to the
bit of a rock fight
of the Chiefs game. Yeah.
No, this was a great game. And you don't normally see this in the NFL, where that many yards. It was a record-setting number of yards in the first half, which was, as a fan, was entertaining to watch, and it's frustrating.
Now, defensive purists might be like, what the hell kind of game is that? But if you're it's nice to see something different.
Yeah, if you're a big defensive guy, this would have been terrible. But it really looks like Daniels is a really good QB, and it was really hard to stop him throwing or passing. Gibbs is an amazing running back. Running and catching. Goff was, even though he had the 3 interceptions, he still threw for a TD and 300 yards. Like, it was still good, like, Ross St. Brown's amazing. Like, it was a real, showcase of some offense.
I mean, they ran for 200 yards. They were 8.7 yards per rush.
That's crazy.
Some of they had, what is this, 521 yards. I mean, some of their stat, like 30 first downs. I mean, but then if Washington was right there with them
by 14 points, that's the crazy thing. But it's 5 turnovers, right? It's 5 turnovers.
Yeah, you just can't overcome. Can't over half your drives end in a turnover. You can't overcome that. You just can't.
It's really a pretty complete game by Washington, because they had 481 yards on offense. They gave up a lot on defense, but they had 481 yards on offense and no turnovers. So that, and they won the time of possession by 7 minutes. So that's a pretty big drubbing on the road, you know, in a really hostile environment. So
does Daniels look like he's somewhere in his 7th or 8th year in the league?
Yes.
He looks as I'm trying. Go ahead.
There's some times where Goff threw where he looked like a bit of happy feet and like sort of was throwing something. It didn't look, Daniels has looked comfortable the whole time. And he's had some pressure and he's had, like, you know, not every throw's good, but man, does he look composed, like really composed for at this point in the season. Well, like they said, this has never happened before. It's the first time I think that a rookie has had back-to-back, like counted for over 300 yards ever in the playoffs. So there's just nothing seems to phase him. It's just no big deal. Now, some people said he's played a lot in college. Maybe that's a theme. Him and Bo Nix, like some of these guys who've played many, many years in college versus the guys who've played 1 year. And in more than one location. So that's like new offensive coordinator, calling new stuff, like learning different things. Like they're started out at Arizona State.
Yes.
And then finished at LSU.
You could see it. Could see it. You're like, oh, this guy's good.
Yeah. But the only thing that they said, and I think the only reason why he didn't get more offers early on was because he was really, really skinny, and now he's just kind of skinny. So, but I mean, it doesn't make a difference. Like he's a baller. But that was, so no, it's a complete game by Washington. That was they outplayed them. You know, they outplayed them. They didn't have a turnover. They took it to them at home in Detroit. It was a great game. I guess the best Robinson Jr.'s look too. I've always I've talked about in the program.
Well, that's why he's on the thumbnail too with Jayden and Scary Terry. How McLaurin, my goodness, is he the best receiver that just doesn't get a lot of attention? I mean, now he is. Yeah, and so that was, and a couple of people have commented on that this season because he's been good for a while. But Washington hasn't been, or they haven't been known for their quarterback play. Let's say that. Well, they've been cycling through quarterbouts for 15 years now, or whatever, 20 years.
And McLaurin's been there for a bit, but now it's his time. You know,
holy crap, is he good?
Was that deep throw by Daniels where the defender was all over him and it landed right in his hands, like right before the goal line. That was amazing.
He's freaking good. And I mean, people keep commenting that McLaurin gets a lot of attention, but De'Ami Brown, that is like that is a good like 1-2. And Eckler's a bit of an X factor when he's healthy. He doesn't get the props that he seems to deserve, but he gets gritty yards and he can catch out of the backfield. Now all of a sudden this team, I mean, Eckler had almost 100 yards split between running and catching. Like that's a classic Eckler performance.
Yes, it is.
If this defense can keep doing the defense group thing here, this team, I mean, do you think they could beat whoever's they're up against next? I don't see why not.
Yeah, especially if it's the Philly that we've seen before that's just struggling, or, you know, reading novels on the sideline, or the so the short answer is yes. With Washington play
of them,
they can beat anyone.
Yeah, they look good. So I mean, arrows pointing up, huge for the Commanders. Now I wonder, I've seen a few comments saying it starts with ownership, and now that Snyder is gone, look how quickly this team turned around. Now obviously you had to land the star quarterback, but holy smokes. But they couldn't do it when he was there. They kept now Robert Griffin was good, but it didn't work, and then the Kirk Cousins thing. So man, it's come together for the Washington fans now, and Dan Quinn makes the Cowboys kind of look like, what do you here's in your division. You could have had him as the successor to McCarthy. Now I don't know all the going ons behind the scenes in Dallas land and what, if that was ever even a thought. But now you've got a guy who knows your team intimately well in your division with what looks like a better quarterback than what you have, and all arrows pointing up. And now you're stuck dealing with that for however many years moving forward. That's just, I've seen a few comments with Cowboys fans thinking like, oh, come on, really? Like this is how this just went.
And I think he was the defensive coordinator at Florida too for a bit. So he's had that, and then he went to, and he was good with the Falcons. It was just that historic collapse in the Super Bowl. Like, if I think that really would have changed the narrative, because he's been a really good coach for a long time. So he's very good.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know that anyone really thought Daniels would be this good. It was, remember at the beginning of the season, no one really knew what was going on. I've seen people say Daniels became what people thought Caleb Williams was going to be.
Great call. Yeah, I think that's a great take. And I mean, he's pretty slender. Like I think he just doesn't look like your prototypical, or there's not too many NFL QBs that look like him. Let's just say it like that.
Yeah.
And so,
Do you think Jackson was this thin at the beginning and got bigger?
No, I don't think so. This guy's
about the same size.
Well, that's a great question. Let's
I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's data on if he's gotten bigger. I mean, a few Ocho and Sharp on Nightcap seems to think that Jackson has gotten a little bit more muscular.
Okay.
I don't think it necessarily matters as long as he avoids getting hit, which he and Daniels and Lamar Jackson seem to have a running style that lends itself, and however their vision works and however crafty they are, they seem to be able to get out of harm's way. Yeah, every now and then Daniels gets lit up. Actually, last week, that one hit where he just went flying out of bounds. So, I mean, it always depends on staying healthy, but if he can stay healthy, he just looks outstanding.
So I turned to our crack research team, which is me on the internet.
Right.
And according to the ESPN, the listed height and weight on the ESPN site, Jayden Daniels, 6'4", 210 pounds.
It's not that thick.
Does not look like he's 6'4", but I mean, so, and if he is that tall, that's pretty slim. Lamar Jackson, 6'2", 205 listed. So could be under that too, right? So, but anyway, yeah, either way, they're not that big around. So
neither of them. They're not Josh Allen size. They're not massive like that. But again, Cam Newton got hurt pretty bad and he was enormous.
Yeah.
So I mean, getting hit by any NFL defender could potentially lead to an injury, regardless of how big or not big you are. And so it's just, if you're going to run a lot, you're going to get hurt a lot. I think that actually shortened Cam Newton's career because they ran him like a battering ram after a while. And I don't think he cared. He didn't seem to shy away from it. There was probably a pride factor with him too. Like, he was fast, he was crafty, but he also could just run you over. So he might have not done himself any favors using that part of his skill set, just the fact that he's huge. But these guys seem to be able to, when I say these guys, Daniels and Jackson specifically, seem to be able to run in a way where they seem to be able to manage to get out of harm's way, let's say more often than not.
Yes, I think they do it. They do it very well.
Yep.
And I think you're exactly right. I mean, I don't want to talk about Newton too much, but I remember in college him running over people, and that got a lot of attention. And I just don't think you can do that in an NFL for a sustained career, because
Josh Allen does it.
I know, but
it's
really
for trouble.
It's really different in the NFL to college, like the size and the speed.
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying, like, guys who were doing it are one hit away from it really going badly.
Yes. So anyway, but good, excellent game. Loved watching Detroit. We almost had the over in the first half with 52 points, which was fantastic, and really exciting to watch it. And I think Washington's going to be a tough out for LA or Philly. So.
Yeah, they're fun to watch. I wonder if that's going to affect the ratings at all. I don't know if they're the most exciting team for non-Washington fans. I think they are. I think Daniels is fantastic.
I think he's outstanding. I don't think why the ratings will be any different for LA or Philly in that case.
I think the story of this year, at the beginning of the year, and this I'll leave it here. If you were to ask somebody, who do you think the two teams representing the NFC would be in the NFC Championship game? I think the story people thought in their heads was the Lions and either the 49ers before their epic collapse, or maybe the Eagles coming back to prominence. Now, you might not have known the Eagles would have landed such home runs on some picks, like a couple of the DBs and the linebacker, what's his Bond. So they hit a
little guy named Barkley.
Oh, right, Barkley too. So a few things worked out so great for the Eagles. Now they look probably like the favorite now that the Lions aren't there. But you would have thought probably those two, maybe the Packers, but for sure the Lions. The Commanders weren't in anyone's preseason story as to how the NFC was going to end.
No.
But now that they're there and Daniels just looks like a revelation, I'd be fun if he made it.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. Oh no, I'm excited for. I'm really excited for the next round. At the time of recording, it's still Sunday. The other games haven't happened yet.
Yep.
But I'm excited for Kansas City and either Baltimore or Buffalo. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. And I'm really excited for Washington and Rams or Philly. I think that game's going to be fantastic. So so sometimes in the NFL, the the divisional, like the conference championship games are better in the Super Bowl. Some, and this year might be one of those years, depending on how it shakes out. But
could be
the conference championship games are going to be great.
My last item here is: do you think this is another commentary on Detroit I've seen? Do you think Detroit, with their full complement of starting defensive players, would have won this game pretty easily, and it wouldn't have been like this? In other words, let's say there was a bunch of turnovers. Do you think a fully, like with Hutchinson and everyone there, do you think they could have weathered at least some of that storm, or is that just too much?
That's a great question. I'm going to say yes. I think if they've got their full complement of defense, it slows Washington down enough that they're not having to push for it. They don't have to force the throws, do some of the crazy stuff like the Williams run and throw, and therefore would make the difference. So I think that would have, having their full complement on defense would have made a difference in this. Having Hutchinson in there makes a difference. That's either a sack or chasing Daniels down from behind at least once, like
we're changing how they call the offense.
Yeah. It's, so
like when he went out, he was leading the league in sacks, and he looked like defensive player of the year on his way towards that.
Well, and that's, a lot of people said that when Detroit had all the injuries, and they were like, they said, oh, this is going to be bad, and the defense could be bad going forward. And then for the rest of the season, it wasn't bad. Like, and so everyone was like, oh, they're not, they're doing okay. Like they're really in there, which when you get to the divisional round, or, that's not enough.
Hanging in there's not enough. But man, they ended the season so strong, and they put away a couple of teams.
I know.
It was, I actually thought, all right, they can plug in whoever they want on defense, and it works just fine.
Right.
And I guess it just sort of caught up with them. But again, Goff doesn't play defense.
That was more of a combination of Minnesota collapsing too. It was darn. The last couple of games were rough.
Oh yeah. At the end, after the season's over, we're gonna have to do a postmortem on all the teams, and big question marks around Minnesota. So I guess so. Arrows are pointing up for Washington clearly, and they still can make the Super Bowl, which will be utterly unprecedented with Daniels as a rookie. And then the Lions, I think arrows are still up. They're still probably going to come in as the favorite next year. When the defense is healthy, there's no reason to think they can't. I mean, the offense is the offense. I think it's the best offense in the NFL. And then that defense, fully healthy, should be right there. Yep. And this is another draft where they could plug a few more holes if they even have any holes. And last thing, kudos to the Lions' depth getting this far, missing that many people, and the defense looking pretty good the whole way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm not, it's really, and Campbell was really emotional at the end of the game, because it's when you have such a good team, it's really tough to get, bumped out at this point. But he should hold his head high, because they lost a lot of people and overcame a lot of stuff to be this good, So
it was just attrition. You just can't. No. You just can't afford to lose that many players, especially really the ones they did lose.
And it really seems like, we might be looking at this. This is sort of the Jayden Daniels coming out party. Like if he does a deep run in the playoffs and then he's good for some time, so.
Yeah. What if they win the Super Bowl and you just happen to run into this guy on a historic run?
Yep. I know.
We don't know. All right. Well, that's it for our coverage of the Commanders-Lions game. And we will be back tomorrow or Tuesday. We'll be back with
Tuesday.
Review of
the other ones,
the other two games, and the college national championship game. So we would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. If you like what we got going on here, please leave comments. We always like to hear from fans of specific teams and your take on how your team did. And come back to the channel in a couple of days. We'll catch you later.